Well, for any of you folks who ever listened to me back in the days when I was on WOWO, I wasn't into too much political stuff. Yes, occasionally I dabbled into it, but more often than not, I did, things that I thought was interesting, things that were going on in our city and in our state, not so much necessarily anything out of Washington, D.C. And ultimately, when I was let go by WOWO, they said, well, they wanted to go more political. And they brought in someone who's a lot more political than I was. And that's fine. That's business. In radio, if you haven't been fired, you will be. Just telling you the way it is. But in all those times, I just didn't cover a whole lot of stuff. They said, hey, be just like, follow Rush Limbaugh, do the same thing that he does. I didn't do it. That just wasn't me. I had my own style, my own thing I wanted to talk about, and fortunately, people wanted to hear it. But speaking of politics, well, now I'm going to get into it just a little bit. Bear with me, if you will. It seems that in Washington, D.C., the Epstein files, Jeffery Epstein, remember him? They talked about him? Well, a lot of that stuff has been released. And gee whiz, all those people that are harboring and saying, oh, we got stuff on Trump, he did this, he did that. Suddenly all that conversation, all that words, all that buffoonery, in my opinion, has pretty much dried up. Some people are even resigned when information about them being involved with the Epstein situation has come to light. And they've actually quit their jobs because they were embarrassed or whatever. Larry Summers is one that I want to bring up. I'm not talking about him, but he was one of the ones who stepped down. Well, the House Oversight Committee, headed up by James Comer, their job is to oversight things that go on out there that are not bad, really bad, and look into them and to see if there's something that they can do about it in Congress. Well, back many months ago, Mr. Comer issued out a list of people they were going to ask for depositions. Now you say, well, deposition, what's a deposition? Deposition was in there. You get called in and attorneys from both sides could do a deposition to ask you questions. All sorts of questions involving a pending case that could very well go to trial. If the case goes to trial, the information they garner from a deposition asking you questions, that's where they get the questions in the trial. That's where they learn stuff, what you did, what you didn't do, whatever. So they're asking for depositions from a number of people. Now, they've gotten some, Bill Barr, among others, and some of what we call the low-hanging fruit involving the Epstein situation. But some of the names they said we want to interview, two of them stuck out. They're supposed to be interviewed in October. Well, here we are in December, and those two have not been interviewed at all. Who are they? Turns out, Bill and Hillary Clinton. Yep, they were told they were going to be interviewed, but boy, when the interview came time for them, they said, we are so tied up with stuff going on. We are so busy. We got things going on. We just can't make it for that deposition. Sorry. And they backed out. Well, Mr. Comer from the House Committee said that, you ain't going to do that. We're going to demand you come in and demand. And, of course, the Clintons are lawyered up. Be honest with you. Everybody lawyers up in Washington, D.C. That's standard operating procedure. You get lawyered up. And they were lawyered up. And so their lawyers negotiating with the House Oversight Committee said, well, tell you what we'll do. We will answer written questions. You give us a question, we'll give you a written response. And Mr. Comer said, that ain't going to cut it because a written response is not under oath. Now keep that in mind, folks. A written response is not under oath. And if you lie to Congress, well, you know what can happen. If they choose to, they can put you in jail. Some people have gone to jail, others haven't got anything. But in this case, Bill and Hillary. And they want to talk to them and see exactly what was your involvement with Mr. Epstein. What did you do? I mean, Mr. Clinton, he was on the Lolita Express over a dozen times. Apparently there's a picture hanging in one of the buildings over on the island that Epstein has that, I've heard about it. I've seen pictures of it, but I'm going, I don't know if that's real or not, but I've heard. So what's been going on? What's been involved with this, with the people in the Epstein situation? Mr. Comer and his committee want to know. And like I said, Hillary and Bill said, we ain't going to do it. We'll send you written answers. Comer said, you're going to show up. Well, guess what? They are both now been subpoenaed to show up. You're going, okay, they're going to show up. They're going to have to answer questions in a deposition. These are closed-door depositions, by the way. So you're not going to sit there. They're not sitting in front of a congressional committee and they each get 5 minutes kind of crap that you've seen going on, okay? 5 minutes, you can talk, whatever. This is a deposition. We're asking questions. And they could be used down the line for, well, whatever. Well, here's what's going to happen, folks. And then we've seen this before. When in Washington, D.C., if you're called in for a deposition and you don't want to answer any questions, you develop a case of forgetfulness. That's right. Your memory goes absolutely blank. And you're going to say, I don't recall. Gee, my memory fades me. I don't remember. I don't recall. You're going to hear the phrase, I do not recall, more times than you can count. If there were a drinking game for every time you heard the term, I don't recall, that'd be some people dying of alcohol poisoning. That's how bad it is. This is the way it works in Washington, D.C., folks. This is how the game is played. The game is played, if you don't want to answer a question, your attorneys tell you, forget everything. Don't remember anything, because they can't get you, because they can't keep pushing you. You say, I don't recall. Well, let me help you to recall. Maybe they can do that at a trial. Say, well, let's bring in this evidence here to see if we can't shake your memory a little bit. But in a deposition, you can deny remembering anything. My guess is that's what's going to happen if and when Bill or Hillary do show up for their depositions behind closed doors. Now, could I be wrong? Could they spill the beans on everything? No, they aren't. See, if you take them down, they're probably going to want to take everybody else down, and nobody in Washington wants to be taken down because it's all a dirty little party. One doesn't want to take down the other because, well, then the other person's going to take them down. Evil is as evil does. And once you get blood, and once you get a blood shit from somebody in Washington, you know something really nasty and really dirty, you can use that, keep yourself out of trouble, and maybe make yourself a whole lot of money. So, Bill and Hillary are scheduled to be deposed. Will it happen? Well, we don't know. And Hillary is saying, what's she got to do with Epstein? Well, a lot of things that were going on. His squeeze, Ghislaine, I believe it is, she showed up at every one of the Clinton major functions. What's her deal? What's she connected to the Clintons for? Interesting. So how is Ghislaine tied to the Clintons and Hillary? Something to be asked. All of those things are part of what's going to be coming up in the depositions scheduled for, well, this month. And will they forget? Oh, they won't forget. They'll be there. But their memories, when asked questions, will definitely sink into, I don't recall. Just watch, folks. That's probably what's going to happen because they want the entire thing to disappear. And they themselves want to be exonerated in every way, shape, or form. I did nothing. I see nothing. That's what we're dealing with. Now, you know.